Okay, so good day everyone. I'm Mr. Nicolas Tagle and along with Ms. Carla Luisa Adap and Mr. Ryan Barbado. And we three are going to discuss Chapter 2 Genetically Modified Organisms, Science, Health, and Politics. In this lesson, we are going to discuss genetically modified organisms, its definition, as well as the benefits and risks of it. Okay, let's start. Year 2001, Rosalie Alasus, a former overseas Filipino worker in Singapore, turned farmer, attended the Integrated Pest Management Farmers Field School, and was introduced to BT corn. This genetically modified corn is resistant to the destructive Asian corn borer. BT corn yielded 7.2 tons per hectare, as compared to regular yield of 4.2 tons per hectare, and no insecticides needed. Okay, it says here, Rosalie Sus once became a worker in Singapore that turned into a farmer. She attended the Integrated Pest Management Farmers Field School, and she was introduced to PD corn, and she found out that GMO helps to resist the corn indestruction threats. Moreover, corn yielded a greater tons per hectare, and there was no insecticides needed. So that is how the GMO works in the corn itself. Okay, and the next one is year 1951, Dragon's Island. The term genetic engineering was coined by Jack Williamson, author of the science fiction novel Dragon's Island. Continuous research was held for development, and the genetic engineering was no longer just a fiction. It became reality in the science laboratories. In 1951, there was a science fiction novel which is Dragon's Island. Genetic engineering was a fictional character in the novel, and due to the research of development that makes sense in terms of science, it turned into a reality in science laboratories. Next one is genetic engineering. The general process is the deliberate manipulation of the organism's genes, where it may involve the transfer of genes from another organism. Genetic engineering's role is to manipulate the genes of an organism, which we say manipulating. It refers to inserting some additional traits of an organism in order for it to enhance. Next one is, why is genetic engineering important? Genetic engineering allows scientists to insert or suppress desired traits or features into an organism, enhancing a crop's resistance, for instance, or promoting photosynthesis. This artificial manipulation of DNA would never happen in nature. It replaces the traditional method of selective breeding, a common and completely safe practice used by growers. It allows the genetic engineering to insert other traits or features to the organisms, and it enhances the organism, like for example is promoting photosynthesis to an organism. However, this would not happen in nature. It replaces the traditional method of selective breeding, changing its traits and adding in some features, and it is commonly practiced by growers for a person who grows a particular type of crop. Okay, so next one is genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms, in short GMO, is the term used for an organism created through genetic engineering. The World Health Organization, in short WHO, year 2014, defines GMO as an organism, either plant, animals, or microorganisms in which the genetic material, short DNA, has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating or natural recombination. Genetically modified organisms refers to an organism of which its genes or DNA has been modified or changed, making a new and desirable trait to an organism. WHO defined it just like the definition from the previous bullet. Genetically modified organisms refers to an organism of which its genes or DNA has been modified or changed, making a new desirable trait to an organism. Next one is genetic genetic modified organism. The development of GMOs was perceived to help advance technology for the benefit of human in GMOs in the food and agricultural industries. So the development of these organisms is included in the advanced technology being used to upgrade different industries like agriculture and medicine, and it will benefit the human. So next one is GMO in food and agricultural industries. The Center for Ecogenetics and the Environmental Health, in short is CEH, in the year 2013, identified the following roles of GMOs in the food and agricultural industries: pest resistance, virus resistance, herbicide tolerance, fortification, cosmetic, preservation, increased growth rate. So let us proceed to GMOs in food and agricultural industries according to CEH. Here are the following roles of GMO in food and agricultural industries, and we are going to discuss it one by one. Okay, so next one is pest resistance. Genetically modified plants to resist certain pests. An example is BT corn. The DNA, in short genome, of the BT corn has been modified with the gene of Bacillus thuringiensis, a soil bacterium that produces proteins which is toxic to corn borer, in short worms. Pest resistance GMO helps to prevent the destruction of plants or organisms from pests. Examples here is the BT corn, a soil bacterium in the corn that produce proteins, help to eliminate corn borer or worms, which is harmful to the corn. Next one is virus resistance. Genetically modified plant to resist certain viruses. An example is GM papaya or rainbow papaya. The papaya ring spot virus, in short PRSP, is known to be detrimental to papaya plants. The protein of PRSP was introduced to the papaya plant through plant tissue, which turned out to be resistant to the virus itself. The effect was like the vaccines humans have against measles or influenza virus. Pest resistance GMO helps to prevent the destruction of plants or organisms from pests. Example is the papaya. There is a virus for the papaya which is PRSP, and it causes harm to the papaya. The protein of it turned out to be resistant to the virus itself. Okay, moving on to the herbicide tolerance. Genetically modified plant to tolerate herbicide. An example is Roundup Ready soybean. Glyphosate, glyphosate, an herbicide for weeds, was introduced to soybean, making it tolerant to the herbicide itself. Farmers then can spray the herbicide, killing the weeds but not the soybeans. Herbicide tolerance, it helps the organisms to survive and reproduce after herbicide treatment. Example is the Roundup Ready soybean. Soybean will be tolerant to the herbicide for it. So once the farmers spray the herbicide, the weeds will be killed but not the soybeans, since it is tolerant. Next one is fortification. Genetically modified plants fortified with certain minerals. An example is golden rice. Beta carotene, a precursor of vitamin A, was introduced through biosynthesis genes to the rice, making the rice grains fortified with vitamin A. Fortification GMO improves the plants or organism by adding nutrients to the food and improving its nutrition status. Example is golden rice. It added nutrient to it, making the rice grains fortified with vitamin A. Next one is cosmetic preservation. Genetically modified plants resist natural discoloration. An example is Arctic apple. The apple variety was genetically modified to suppress the browning of the apple due to superficial damage. Cosmetic preservation, it helps to maintain the natural color of a plant or organism. Like, for example, an apple, we know that it turns brown once we let it open or cut its inside part. So the purpose of GMO is to maintain its color and prevent it from turning brown. The next one is increased growth rate. A genetically modified organisms that has higher yielded higher yield in growth than normal species. An example is advantage salmon. A gene from an ocean pout an eel-like fish was introduced to Pacific Chinook. Some salmon making the salmon grow faster than the normal rate. Increased growth rate from the natural size of an organism, it could still be bigger than the usual plant like the salmon. For example, it increases the growth rate and grows faster than the normal or the actual size.